and welcome to MIC TV. Today, we're going to be discussing PR and advertising, the path to stardom or financial ruin. I'm your host, Greg Ferriola, along with my partner, TJ Peterson. Now, if this is your first time joining us, we would like you to please say hello in the chat and welcome you to our community. Before we get started and hop into today's topic, just want to say if you ever need anything from us, please check out our website, musicianindiecoalition.com. And as always, that is a mouthful, so we will drop that into the chat to make it easy for you guys to say hi. Basically, when you go on the site, you'll see a bunch of the ways that we can work together. You can schedule a free session with us, a bunch of different things. But it just allows you to know all the different ways that you can work with us. It has some resources on there. So if you're in need help with your music career, please feel free to contact us and check that out. All right, so today, we're just dive right in, and we are going to be, again, discussing PR and advertising, the path to stardom or financial ruin. Now, throughout the history of the music industry, the standard business plan for most musicians has been to simply copy what successful artists have done before them in the past. And on the surface, that doesn't really seem like that bad of a plan. And in fact, when we work with the artists in our program, we actually have them research their influences to see, what kind of stuff they're doing and what kind of stuff they want to incorporate into their business plan. So there is some value of copying other artists and what they've done in the past. However, the mistake that most musicians will make from this is that they try to use the exact blueprint of the artists that influence them, and they don't take into their account their own uniqueness in their music and the stuff that they're doing. And that's a problem. So to give you a brief example of what I mean, here is what a typical artist or band does when they're pursuing a music career. First they will form a band and then they'll write songs. And then when they're ready, they're going to go ahead and record their first, album, which typically will involve them spending lots of money in the studio on, recording, and then the equipment that needs to be done, the mixing and the mastering, basically everything that you need to do to release music. Then once they've created their album, then they turn to trying to figure out how they're going to go about selling it. Or a lot of artists too are focusing on just getting discovered based on the quality of what they create. And this typically involves, releasing an album online, to see what happens, and then they gauge how good their music is received by people. So that's like what all artists do. It's like, let's put the album out and then, see what happens, and then hopefully people will respond to it. And, if that takes off, then I'm good. But typically that's not the case. Now, during this period, again, they hope that their music will just take off and their music career will be off and running. However, when this doesn't happen, basically what happens next is they're not sure what to do. That if that was their plan, to release and see what happens, and nothing happens, well, what do you do after that? They'll go through typically what I would say is like the emotional side of the reaction, which is like they know that their music is good, or at least they feel their music is good, and they're confident that all they need to do is get people to listen, and that once they can do that, then their music career will be off and running. But because they release music and no one's heard it, they still have that concept of like, okay, all I need to do is get heard and I'm fine. So what they'll do is they'll choose to copy, again, what other artists are either doing, like their peers, or what other artists have done in the past. And they'll maybe do things like pay for placement on playlists, or maybe hire a blogger to do a review. And as a result, they might see their playlist counts go up, and they might get their followers increase, but they're not acquiring true fans. And they're definitely not most likely making any money. And then it's at that point that we find that the panic sets in. It's like, hey, I just spent all this money on recording my album, and I'm not getting the response that I want. What do I do? I'm not making my money back. I won't be able to afford to pay for another album. All these different things. They start questioning whether their music's good or it's bad. I mean, it's just, the emotional negative side of what all artists do. And, I've gone through that as well. It's a horrible, horrible feeling. And then, you really begin that questioning of, is it me, or is it my music, or is it something completely different that I don't know about? And this leads them back, to looking into, again, what artists have done in the past, which is major artists, when they do this research, find that they are promoting their music through advertising and paying for PR to get the exposure for their new album. So a lot of artists will begin to experiment with social media ads to grow their audience, and maybe even spend thousands of dollars paying, a PR company or a publicist to get out there and, promote their album and their work. After all, if that's what professional artists do, then it has to be the next step, right? Well, in our opinion, wrong. Just because something works again for someone else isn't necessarily mean it's the next and best step for you and it's going to work for you. Now, the question that we're here to talk about today is, why is that? If you've been watching some of our episodes, you're going to know the answer to this, and that's because you are a unique artist, and you need to account for that when you are releasing music and putting on shows, and basically when you're doing anything where you want to attract an audience. Like, you got to figure out your unique recipe for success. There are a ton of critical factors that you need to take account into your career when you do these kind of things. So when you're kind of trying to figure out what's going to make you successful, blindly copying your favorite artist or another musician who you feel like you're like isn't necessarily going to do it, because again, you're not them and they aren't you. So the main thing that we want to stress is that if you go to invest in PR, it's going to be a huge financial risk that independent artists and bands most likely should avoid. Simply put, if you don't have a huge audience and a steady income from your music, then PR isn't going to be for you. Now, the problem with PR is it's not designed to create a demand for your music. It's designed to create awareness for people that are already in and care about your music. Now, to give you an analogy, I always say PR is like pouring a gas on fire. But if the demand for your music doesn't exist, then you're simply pouring gas down the drain. There's nothing to ignite. There's nothing that's going to make people, be like, wow, hey, this is something I need to listen to. So the reason why major artists pay for PR is because their fan bases are so huge that there's no way to directly communicate with their entire audience. On the flip side, though, indie artists don't have this problem, and they don't have these kind of logistical issues. It's completely within the powers of an independent artist to build an email list, communicate with them, and to build an effective organic promotional system. And by doing that, you're going to wind up saving thousands of dollars while building a solid line of communication with your fans, which is essential when you're starting out in your career and trying to develop that core fan base that's going to wind up supporting you from now and years to come. Now, as an independent artist, your two most precious assets that we always say is your money and your time. So you really want to kind of take that kind of stuff into account and be very protective of both. And because PR is a very high risk investment, you really want to be careful with how you spend and where you invest. And if you choose to actually pay for PR, you want to make sure that you go into it with a fixed budget that's not going to hurt you financially. And you definitely don't want to be doing odd things like taking out loans to cover those expenses. Now, what this means is if you, actually, hold on, I need a sip of water. Now, if you're watching this, you might disagree with what I'm saying, and if you do, that's completely fine. We're here to give you our best advice from our experience from working years in the industry and from working with artists. But if you disagree with what I'm saying and you do want to work with a PR company, when you go to work with them, ask them if they're going to guarantee a financial return on your investment. Meaning, if you pay them $3,000 to promote you across all the different channels and drum up interest in what you're doing, will they guarantee that you're going to make at least $3,000 in return for your sales? And if possible, when you ask them that, take a picture of their face, because I would love to see it, because they're just not going to do that. At the end of the day, they're not going to be able to give you some sort of a guarantee because they have no idea what the work they're going to do is actually going to bring as a return investment. They can say they can help you build your followers and get you more eyeballs and all that kind of stuff, but they'll never commit to actually giving you fans. People actually will support you, and they're definitely not going to commit to the idea of that what they're going to do is going to make you money and put a dollar sign on it. They might say, yeah, you'll make tons of money from this, but they're not going to say exactly, you'll make $3,000 or you'll make at least $4,000 from this or whatever. And that means as an independent artist, like, you can't really afford to take that risk. Now, I'm not saying that PR doesn't have value, because it does. But most independent artists don't have huge budgets. So as an independent artist, if that's you and you're watching this, you have to take that into account and invest your money in things that are lower risk and invest things that are, a smart investment, where there's going to be a high chance for your return. And PR, in our opinion, simply isn't that an investment, because there's no accountability for what you're going to get in return. And when it comes to advertising, the same rule basically applies. You want to be careful on how much you spend on paying for ads. Now, if you pay for ads on a service like Facebook to get your followers to go up, will you see your followers go up? Absolutely, 100%. Your followers will go up. Does that guarantee that these followers will become fans and eventually financially support your career? Absolutely not. TJ and I have invested, just our own money into trying to tinker around with that kind of stuff, because, we're trying to grow a business, but also too, we will invest money on things that we want to talk about with other musicians, and so we can fully understand, what that entails. And we've seen our followers go up, but it doesn't mean that we're getting quality followers. And even after you get those followers, because of all the algorithms and things that are going on there, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to connect with them and you're not going to be able to reach them. And as a result, you'll probably have to pay for more advertising so you can actually communicate with those people. So it's just this never-ending money pit that you kind of go down when you're trying to pay for advertising on services like that. Now, social media services are designed to get you to pay for advertising and to reach your audience. If that wasn't the case, they would not have algorithms that would prevent your audience from seeing all the stuff that you post about. But it's specifically designed so that you have to pay for advertising. And they're not thinking of you when they're doing this. They're, because the amount of money an independent musician is going to pay for advertising isn't going to, make or break Facebook or any of the other services that are out there. But companies that have millions of dollars of budgets to invest in social media marketing, that's who they're targeting. So if you're looking to grow your audience and you're a multi-million-dollar company, that kind of advertising is completely acceptable, because they can actually afford to take a hit, for that and spend the kind of money that needs to be spent to have an impact and reach that kind of audience. But again, for independent artists, it could absolutely spell financial ruin. And if you have a hard time with that, we get it. It's difficult to build a full-time, long-term music career. And if you don't want to wait for that time to come and slowly build your career, you might say, you know what, I'm willing to spend that kind of money to do whatever it takes to reach my goal. I believe in my music that much that, I'm just going to spend what I need to spend to get where I need to go and not worry about it. But your impatience in this kind of situation is going to wind up most likely damaging your career. To build any successful business, whether you're doing music or anything else, it takes time, hard work, and overall a lot of learning. And there's really, honestly, no way to skip this process or to make the process go any faster. And if you've watched any of the shows, you've probably heard me talk about it from time to time. I made that mistake with my career. I didn't believe any of the stuff I just said. I was like, my mentor told me that not to, try to race, solely build my audience, make my connections, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I'm just going to go out and, invest a ton of money into recording an album, working with the best musicians, doing what I need to do with all my music connections. And it's like, it'll be fine. What does she know? She's only been working in the industry for like 30 plus years. And instead of actually blowing up my career, I dug myself into about $20,000 worth of debt, because I didn't have the money to do it. But I believed in my music so much that I was willing to make that kind of a financial commitment. But, now, the what I've come to realize is music, and again, the musician in me has a hard time saying this, music really doesn't matter. It's not your music that's going to actually pull people in. Not that your music could be absolutely terrible, but at the same time too, I know plenty of really successful artists out there, and I'm sure you know them too, that have super successful careers, and you absolutely hate their music. So it's not necessarily about the music; it's about who you are and the experience that you give to your audience. And I never realized that, and I wound up sinking my career before I really kind of got into it. So what I'm trying to say is there is no easy path to success, and the sooner you accept that, the better. Because once you do, you can begin to work on the things that will really actually help you develop your music career. So again, if you don't want to take our word for it and you want to experiment with PR and advertising, that's completely fine, but just don't go all in. Protect your money and your work, and always work within a budget. Because that is something that is absolutely a necessity if you're going to go do these kind of things. Don't listen to me. Don't take out loans or drain your savings, because again, the chances that you're going to make that money back are slim. If you've been around the block a few times and you know that from your album, you're selling a decent chunk of change every single time you release music, then you can make an educated decision. I can actually invest $5,000 in PR and play around with that because I make $10,000 every single time I release an album. If you have that kind of stuff, that's fine. But if you're just starting out and you don't know what you're going to make from your album, I'd err on the side of caution when it comes to that kind of stuff. And going through this, you're really going to need to figure out, how to slowly build your audience and make meaningful followers. And that's, again, going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort, but it's worth it because building that kind of structure with your audience is something that you're going to be able to depend on forever. And again, it'll just take some time, and it isn't something you can outsource to advertising or a PR company, because building personal relationships can't really be done by another person on your behalf. People want to get to know who you are, especially when you're just starting out, because that's knowing who you are and the story behind what you're doing is what's going to make them feel a connection to you and want to support you. So, having a PR company write some ads and do some stuff for you, or paying from advertising that's going to flash up on Facebook or Instagram, ain't really going to do it, because it doesn't really say who you are. And there's so much content out there and there's so much music that it's not going to draw people in. So you really need to take the time and focus on personal relationships and not try to do what every artist does, which is pay for advertising and pay for, PR campaigns. And that's what just needs to be done when you're building your initial audience and you're first starting out, because it's those relationships that are going to ultimately support your career. All right, that was a mouthful. Hopefully I didn't go that too fast. TJ, any thoughts on the matter or questions or anything along those lines?
No, I mean, you just about covered it. Yeah, I think I would really, love the point about, like, if you've released an album before and you know what you're going to make, then you know what you can spend. I mean, that's really the big takeaway. I mean, PR and marketing it's always experimenting. I mean, if you sit down with a PR person, or a marketing person, they will say, let's like put this budget forward and try it. And then, then they're like, and then we can take our findings and we can apply your next round of budget more appropriately. I mean, even they know that it's because they don't know your career in and out. So they know that it's not an exact science. So they're going to take your first budget and kind of just do a shotgun blast out there. And then they'll say, okay, I learned a lot from that. So now let's take another big chunk of change and do a little closer of a shotgun blast again and see how that does. So if you're going to blow your whole budget on the first round, you should probably just walk away and do the more kind of tangible means of finding followers and contacting your known fans and making sure you're kind of meeting the potential on that before you kind of try to just get strangers involved and that kind of thing. So yeah, if you sold an album before and you know how much money you made, look at that amount of money and try and carve out a budget from that. And even from that budget, try and carve like a third of that so you can do 3 rounds of PR. And every time they might get a little better in performance or something like that. But don't just take a big chunk of money and give it to somebody, because you're not going to get the results you want, I promise you.
Yeah, I mean, PR and advertising is not used to build a career or create a career. It's used again to just to reach your already found audience that you're just having a hard time connecting with. That's why video game companies and movie companies, they'll spend tons and tons of money on advertising because they know they have fans, but they have no way to contact every single one of them. So they'll spend a ton of money, saturating the market with advertising so that they have an opportunity to connect, with the people. So people are aware that, their product is coming out, or their movie's coming out, or their game is coming out, and that's completely fine. Now you might be also questioning too, or you've heard success stories where people have paid for PR. There's always exceptions to every rule. And that's, again, if you want to roll the dice and do that, just do it responsibly. I remember when we were first starting out, we had spoke with someone that had a friend that, had a very successful PR campaign and blew up his career with it. But he also had something that he had worked on, or he was in the news for some reason in his local community. And so there was a lot of people like Googling him and whatever. And he was set up on his website to capture all the people. And he paid a PR company to, make the most out of that, PR experience and drive people to his site. And he was able to build an audience, from that. If you are on a show like American Idol, I was following some local, girl from New York, prior to her going on to American Idol, and her Instagram followers, jumped by 80,000 people overnight. That's fine. That's the kind of thing that can happen when you get a lot of publicity, but without, some reason for people to actually care or being exposed to a large quantity of people in a way that, that's free, like something like you're on American Idol, that kind of exposure costs so much money. And, TJ and I own a record label, and we do pay for PR. But we're very selective on what we spend it on, because, at the end of the day, it is one of those situations where, can it be effective and expand and, earn a lot of money for our album sales? Sure, absolutely. Does it have value also too for our partners that we're working with on that? Again, absolutely. But we also know what sales we can kind of expect from, the releases that we do. So we responsibly, take a portion of those sales out, and we spend that on, garnering and creating additional exposure.
Yeah. Another thought is, if you are dipping your toe into PR and marketing for the first time, maybe try it not on an album, but maybe try it on a show. Because when you have a show, it's like you could charge $20-$30 a ticket, and that's more than the $7 you'll get from selling an album on iTunes. And plus, you can get email addresses there, and you can sell merch there. So you might be per successful lead that you pull in, you could be making much more money than you would necessarily on your album, and then that return is a little easier to meet. It's a little less risky than on actually releasing music. So if you do want to give it a shot, kind of try out a PR agent or something, maybe do it on a big concert you're throwing, because the return per successful, lead is better than, just getting somebody to buy your album necessarily.
The rate of your return is important. If you're just selling music, like TJ said, it's tough, because streams, let's say you go out and get 1 million streams. 1 million streams isn't, you spend $5,000 on PR. You're not making $5,000 from, 1 million streams. You're just not. It's just not where that budget kind of comes from. So you have to be really mindful of that. And again, if you're first starting out and you have no history of sales or anything along those lines, you need to be even more careful, because you really don't know what to expect from that kind of stuff. And you want, as an artist, to invest in things that you know. You take guesses? Yeah, go ahead.
The other thing about doing a show is again, when I was talking about how they have that shotgun blast to marketing to people, they don't know who your audience is unless you can really help them figure that out. They don't know what to do. If you're doing a concert, at least they have the locality. At least they know that to spend their marketing dollars in your area, that helps too. So it's also kind of, as a side effect, it kind of narrows the search a little bit as well, which is helpful.
Exactly. So really just kind of take your time and plan this out. And if you're looking for the alternative to this, that we didn't cover, we always recommend, collaboration. And by that, I mean, find other artists that you can collaborate with and put on shows or work on a release, and share fans. if you can, as you continue to do that, you're going to incrementally grow your audience quickly. And you're also going to continue to be making contacts with other artists, which is, essential. You need to have professional contacts, and don't overlook your fellow musicians when it kind of comes to that, because you can put on a show with 3 other artists and you guys each supply, 50 people, to come to the show, or 30 people to come to the show. And if you can walk away with, a fraction of those, new signups to your mailing list, those are all fans that you can potentially be generating hundreds of dollars from, over a short period of time. So you want to really kind of, think and be clever, with where you spend your money and how you spend it. And don't be taken in by, what everybody else is doing, because, that's following what everyone else is doing, again, isn't necessarily a recipe for success, because you are unique. You do have unique audiences. And, you need to figure out the best way for you to connect with your fans. And that comes from learning, and you really do want to protect your money, and you want to invest your money in things where you're, again, going to get a good return, on your investment, whether like you're investing money in merchandise or things of that nature, that, you can say, well, hey, if I spend $500 on this and I can sell it for X amount later, and that you have people that are already going to buy, then that's an investment worth making. But spending $5,000 on a PR campaign and not knowing how much money, if anything, you're going to get in return, nor, knowing how many followers you're going to pick up, and how much of those people are actually going to become fans and spend money on you. It's just too many unknowns in that scenario, in our opinion, because, again, you want to invest stuff in what and not be taking blind risks. And TJ and I will talk about it a lot too. And we'll say, like, there's a big difference between taking a calculated risk and a blind risk. And a blind risk is just, throwing stuff out there and see what sticks and hoping for the best, and spending a ton of money maybe doing that. And that's, no way to gamble with your career. Whereas a calculated risk is, hey, I'm pretty sure based on what I know that I'm going to have X amount of people spend money at, like, let's say on the scenario that TJ was talking about, if you know that you're trying to pack a hall of like 200 people, and from that, you're going to make X amount of money in return. And you have a good chunk of people already coming, and you feel like all you need to do is get an extra X in return by spending this amount of money. If that makes mathematical and economic success, sense, then do it. But that's really the way that you want to approach stuff. And don't approach it from the love of music. I think that's the main thing here. It's like, I love my music. I really feel confident in myself, and I'm going to show it by investing all my money or spending money and, trying to blow my career up. All you're going to do is end your career. It's just not the best way to go about doing.
Yeah, I approach everything else in your career with the love of music, but not PR and marketing, because that is strictly business, and it is, you just got to be smart about it. It is useful when it's used correctly, but I would say 90% of people do not use it correctly. They let their ego drive them. They say, I'm going to spend this money because I want people to hear my music, and no one ends up hearing it, and they don't end up making their money back, and it just hurts the artist. So,
yeah. Or even if they do hear it, what does it matter if you can't connect with those people and you don't bring them into your actual audience and fan base, and you can recontact them?
Oh yeah,
TJ talked about it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, so, we talk about our customer funnel a lot. You have to have your customer funnel set up for sure. I mean, the worst thing would be for you to go huge virally, and get a lot of coverage, and all of a sudden, you get that success from the campaign that you put forward, and everyone goes to your website, and there's no way to sign up for your newsletter, and there's no way to purchase anything, and then they are gone and you never hear from them again. So make sure that all your socials are linked together, and they lead to a point where you can collect email addresses, and you can make that viral push or that PR campaign stick, and it actually works for you in the long run, rather than just kind of petering out and not helping.
Yeah, because in any business, contact details, a person's contact information is what you're after. Once you have someone's contact information, then you can, at your leisure, contact them and build a relationship with them as often as you want, and continually sell to them. Getting people where you're just attracting them, maybe they're buying something, or even they're streaming something, but they're not like doing it from your site, and you have no way to find out who actually bought something from you, like on iTunes or something like that. That doesn't help you. you're building a business. You need to find who your repeat customers are going to be, because it's easier to market yourself and promote yourself to people that are on your email list and in your community that you've built, versus trying to, for every release, find new people to come in and buy stuff from you and pin your hopes on your success by finding those people and getting them to part with their money. It takes a lot of effort to get someone to reach into their pocket and actually pay you something. People are very protective of what they spend money on, so it takes getting to know them, and the only way to do that is by collecting their contact information. So just keep that in mind when you're doing this sort of stuff. It's better to just start off making personal connections with other people that are going to vouch for you, like other artists, and playing shows and collecting emails, than it is to go out there and try to like blow yourself up overnight by spending a ton of money on PR.
Yeah. And we always come back to emotion. We always talk about how that's the powerful, that's the ties that bind. That's what gets things bought, from you. That's what makes customers stick around and fans stick around. And that it's also the fire that Greg is talking about when he says pouring fuel on the fire. PR marketing is that fuel. The fire is the emotion that you've kind of built among among your fans, and that they understand. So if they see an article about you, or they see an advertisement about you, it just needs to reignite that emotion. You can't create that emotion. You know what I mean? That's not the two sticks rubbing together. You need the fire already in place, and it's just a reminder, this PR stuff. Otherwise, it's just noise. I mean, you see ads and articles about bands all the time. Have you ever bought something from them? No. But you've seen an article from a band you know and love, and you're like, oh, I got to buy the album. That's right. So keep that in mind as well. You got to build that fire first before PR and marketing is worth anything to you.
Yeah, no, those are all really, great points, and it's key. So, at the end of the day, we're just telling you this because we want to see each and every one of you succeed. And in this music industry, it's absolutely possible. You just need to, be smart and protect yourself from making the financial mistakes that, most musicians make that end their career. And all the messaging online and all the services out there are designed to get musicians that don't know what they're doing, or don't know what they're doing when it comes to building their career, and promising them major results, and almost as if that's they provide a service that's the answer, and doesn't really allow them to do anything, but they've captured your money because artists just don't know what else to do. So when you're in a situation where you don't know what to do, you are more willing to listen to someone that's promising you whatever they're promising you, and at your personal expense, of course. And that's what you want to protect yourself against. You want to be educated on, this is how I'm going to sell my music. This is how I'm going to build my audience. This is how I'm going to take that audience and transform them into customers that are actually going to support my career, and then work on doing that. And you want to do it in a way where you're spending as little as possible, because every dollar you have is crucial, because you might need to spend it on an album. You might need to spend it on equipment. You might need to spend it, traveling to a specific gig, that's a little bit farther away than your local community, because of whatever opportunity that might be, coming up. But at the end of the day, those are the things you want to spend and invest money in, and not blind risks such as, PR and ad campaigns. They're just not going to give you what you want in return. All right. So anyway, so that's our show for today. So everyone have a great day. And remember, we're always here to help you if you need it. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in creating a professional brand that's going to help you to transform your casual followers into financial supporters, then I invite you to take our free brand creation program that we call your Signature Sales Story. You can find the link for it in the description below. And please don't forget to subscribe. Your support really matters and helps us a lot. Have a great day.